Hello, everyone. Excited to be today in San Diego, sunny San Diego at EU. Very excited to be today with John Fay, CEO and founder of Låda Cube.
Yes, sir.
You're working on great things with prefab, kit of parts, and a new approach for penalized construction and the cubes. We would love to learn more about it. Can you tell us more about how you build differently from the traditional methods?
Yes, Amr, thank you for having me. So basically at Låda Cube, we think through construction differently. We think of it kind of more from a productization standpoint. And so if you think about how we start to make structures easier to build with less skilled labor, and so we basically manufacture 7 sizes of wall cassettes, we call them. And those cassettes allow you to basically build in a Lego-like fashion. So ironically, we call ourselves the 2x4 of the future. So really looking at, how do we tackle some of these inherent, issues in construction and lacking productivity, across the entire supply chain, and how we can improve those levels of productivity through new innovative products.
I love your approach about the kit of parts and the Lego-like pieces. What's your global reach and footprint?
We're based out of Colorado, so we have manufacturing third party in Denver, Colorado, but we also have manufacturing, ironically, in Cape Town, South Africa, in Guadalajara, Mexico. And so some of those partnerships have happened through architects that we are connected with, as well as other companies that are building houses in South Africa using our kits of parts. So we've been able to kind of slowly expand our reach and kind of see how that technology can benefit other communities around the world.
Your approach can be built as a small Lego pieces and travel.
Yes.
And then get assembled on site.
Yep.
How that approach can help spread industrialized construction in a global scale and help with skilled labor shortage in our industry?
So ironically, like one of my best comparisons is if you look at kind of the advent of YouTube over the last 2 decades. And really understanding the way that YouTube has fundamentally changed legacy media and who gets to be a creative. And I would say creatives are kind of one of the big categories of labor that are getting ready to explode. And so what YouTube did is it said, hey, you and I can go create our own TV station. We don't have to go through these gatekeepers, these legacy stations. So it really changed who gets to participate in that environment. And I kind of see the same thing happening with productization, with kits of parts, putting those pieces in the hands of people. So one of our vision statements is free the world to build. And so how do you do that when a lot of the world does not have these highly, skilled sets of understanding on how to build construction or read blueprints? And so we see that as ushering this new 2x4 of the future platform that then allows, it creates freedom for other people to actually participate in the built environment in a whole new paradigm.
So democratizing construction.
I would say that's a great definition. Yes, sir.
And what are the tools you're doing to build differently?
Yeah. So a couple things. So we really refine our offering. So traditionally construction's customization, right? Every building's so different. Every product that goes out is so different. And so we really standardize. So standardization is a big piece of what we do as a company. And so we basically manufacture 7 sizes of wall cassettes. Those cassettes we can mass produce. And so we have efficiencies in production, which then we'll probably talk about later, but brings the cost of construction down over time, which is not a normal trend in construction. But also in the production of those components, it really allows us to basically take a building and basically break it into components. So if you had a 10-foot wall that gets drawn 1,000 times, we look at that differently. Instead of looking at it from a custom standpoint, we look at it from a product standpoint and we say, okay, that's 2 4-foot cassettes and a 2-foot cassette. And so we really break down the components of these structures and say, where can we pull out these efficiencies in production, design, and deliverables?
And how does that support sustainability and the reduction of waste of materials and so on?
One of the unique things about our product is it's actually a modular product. So the way we fit in the ecosystem of the built environment or construction is really between stick built and furniture built, and kind of this new blue ocean category that takes the best of both those worlds. So it doesn't alienate construction or the skilled laborers. It allows them to integrate and use the products and interface with them. But it takes the best of furniture built, which really allows for modularity, reconfiguration, relocation, resell. So you have these products that you can actually sell at the end of their life cycle. And so a very large circular model in terms of what we do. So we can go build out these structures, and then over time they can be fully disassembled. And those products can go back into inventory, or they can go back into other projects, or they can be sold.
And how does that impact the speed and safety on site? One of the biggest challenges on job sites now, especially like in challenging weather places, you want to shed the time for the schedule and build it faster on site. Of course, you can build it somewhere else with the most efficient and high quality in a factory. How your solution, innovative solutions, is empowering speed and safety?
Yeah, so a couple things. So we've been blessed to do a lot of projects with Walmart. They're one of our biggest partners. And so we'll go into their stores and do what we call tenant improvements, which is basically going into those sections of the store that are where they might have like a McDonald's or a bank or a nail salon, where they're on some of these super centers, they're needing to transform those spaces into a vision center or optometry offices in states where they haven't had those services. And so the great thing about that is it's a very finite envelope that is highly repeatable. And so we've been able to pull out a ton of data sets from all those projects across 40 states that we've done so far. And so we were able to say, okay, a traditional stick-built schedule for a vision optometry center took about 30 days to build on average across the board, because they have 5,000 stores too in the US, over 5,000. And so we're able to basically come in with a Låda Cube product, and we know that we can build out that same footprint in usually 8 to 9 days. And so you have the speed to build, which is roughly about 75 to 80% faster than traditional construction. But the other benefit that we really found was labor can work during the day. So when you think about like a healthy lifestyle, sometimes construction can be really hard, right? Like the schedules are off. A lot of those trades have to work at night because of noise or dust. And so what we found is a systematized approach, products allows for people to work different hours. So during the day, because it's a cleaner job site, less noise. So these are some of the extertiary benefits, I think, of the system as we've started to, go into numerous projects and see kind of the long-term benefits of how that actually affects the schedule. It affects the workers. So it's kind of like a waterfall effect, I would say.
I see opportunity for this solution in other building types as well, like occupied campuses for academic buildings or labs. Lab spaces that want to get turned very quickly, or retail. It can really flexible and be tailored to any building type to minimize on-site construction time.
Some of the things we see on that, when you look at productization, which is this whole new category, before you had an asset when your building was built, but the second that you made any accommodations or changes to that building, the value of those assets diminishes to less than zero, because you're actually paying to have it demolished, right? And so you have all this construction and debris waste, whereas productization really is such a forward-looking, way of looking at construction, to where you can take those assets and you can actually see about an 80% savings on secondary use. So if you had $1 million project and you pulled all those assets out of that project and build a similar size project, the second time you use those assets, you're looking at about a $200,000 cost versus the initial $1 million on the first use. So that's that reusability, circularity, but it really translates well into cost savings over time.
And how industrialized construction can play a role in solving the affordable housing, and provide more affordable housing with the same great quality. Balance between quality and affordability. How we can get into that balance with industrialized construction?
Well, so I think, a lot of it comes through the repeatability. So when we look at other industries, like some of the top, big manufacturing industries, electronics or automobiles, those industries have had what we call a technological revolution, and everyone has kind of seen these graphs, right? And construction has been fairly stagnant in comparison to those other industries from a manufacturing and beneficial standpoint, from how that works out in terms of how costs of these products are going down over time or remaining stable, I would say. So whereas construction, there just hasn't been enough standardization I think, to really equate to, a lot of those savings over time. And so one thing we see is just when you start to look at buildings differently, when you start to really think of products, people love products, right? We have our phones. The nice thing about products is you get a lot of repeatability on expectations of costs, and so it allows you to basically take those assets, understand their values, and then use them in different ways. So, but the other thing it does is it actually allows you to design buildings that are actually manufacturable. And that's kind of the things we're doing with Autodesk, Informed Design team, and the COPE team. We're really looking at, okay, how do you allow for architects to have truly informed design to where what they're designing is manufacturable? And so when that really equates to affordability over time, because once we get into highly manufacturable components, that's really where the costs start to come down over time. And the automotive industry is a perfect example. They take these highly complex, and engineered, vehicles with thousands of parts. And it's actually a miracle that they're not $2 million each by the time they come out the other end. And it's because of productization. It's because of all these efficiencies and how they're able to do highly repeatable parts and processes in the manufacturing process.
How you tackle the complexity of MEP systems and coordination? How you approach MEP coordination with your work?
The way we've approached it to date is we take our core products and there's twofold. So we do have electrical systems that are plug and play, and in the cassettes we allow for raceways horizontally and vertically to allow for electrical to be integrated into all the cassettes. But it also, with the plumbing, we provide a specialized cassette that's a 24-inch cassette that can actually, the whole thing can be plumbed to the core. So we don't necessarily deliver the plumbing, but we're trying to make allocations for those conditions on these job sites.
Can you tell me more about the BIM workflow you have and how BIM and digital transformation is pushing your workflow for more efficiencies?
Yeah. So this is really, like, to me, kind of the forefront of the exciting stuff that Autodesk is doing on informed design through their teams. It's really the ability to be able to take a product like mine and put it into this software ecosystem that Autodesk has is really what makes my product work. So the process before was we would take a drawing and we'd have to do what we call lodification. So it's kind of our internal, term that we've created. But it's basically, we would have to take those drawings and we'd have to convert them to our product. And it would take hundreds of hours. And so now what we've been doing with informed design, with COPE, is we're starting to get into the computational side of how do you convert those drawings to products. And so that's really the excitement, I think, of what's happening in our industry with our types of products. But being able to get those products converted into these floor plans computationally with all the data set outputs that even add more efficiencies. So we're seeing projects like a vision and optometry center that would take 197 man hours to lodify. And what we're seeing is the efficiencies of the informed design platform in Revit and what we're doing with COPE is we're seeing those 197 hours be reduced to a couple minutes. So each project we're saving $12,000 to $15,000 just on design fees.
It also empowers designers with these catalogs ready pieces to, as they design, they can really streamline their workflows and be more creative as they design humane spaces.
Yeah, and and sometimes there's concern that for architects or designers that would take away some of their work. But really, it's the work that is taking away is just the highly monotonous, highly repeatable work that, I'm sure most of them would say, hey, I'll be fine not drawing that wall 1,000 times. And so it allows them to focus more on true design, on layouts, on, working with their client to understand how to make the building, more enjoyable, more user-friendly. Yeah, so it just, I think the flow of what it will do over time is just astronomical in terms of how all of these things interface together, all the trades, and just streamlining the knowledge base of like what's being built, how it's being built, and then bringing the cost down.
And I love it. It's changing the perception of how prefab really has to be like a shoebox or something. It can be empower architects to design more flexible spaces. If there is one thing you like to change about the industry, what would it be?
I think selfishly for me, I think it's, the speed of adoption. When you bring a new product to the market, timing is key. And I think, I started Låda Cube 10 years ago, and I remember just the landscape then when you're telling people what you're doing, they're like, that, it was hard to comprehend in some ways that there's a value there. And then, there were also occasionally conversations like, I'm not sure that we need that. Right. But now 10 years later, I think the excitement of like where the industry is heading, and then coupled with the software tools to do those things, I think, we're starting to see kind of this perfect marriage, and timing of, I think, where that opportunity lies, to be able to get these products out into the ecosystem, into the projects. And it's really instrumental working with Autodesk because it gives us an advantage to really truly inform design, so that we can start to educate people and show them in practical ways how these products can go into these projects.
So we are in San Diego today, and what excites you most at EU, the technologies that will shape the future of our industry in the next few years? What do you think that?
A couple things, I'm always excited about informed design. They're a team that I think they're one of the categories within Autodesk, and this is my opinion, that is going to see the most growth over the next couple of years, just because the efficiencies and the access to these family kit of parts and how we can flow projects into manufacturing. So I'm always really excited about that, and I'm probably really biased in that. But other things I saw, when Andrew spoke about AI, I think there's just all this, energy around AI and curiosity and understanding like where will that potentially go for the industry, and how can it actually, and I know it can, it's just understanding true application, but how that will make our lives better and streamline some of these processes. So I think that's one of the categories I'm really excited about, that I don't know a ton about, but I'm always learning more. But it seems like where the future is headed.
Thank you so much, John, for sharing all your great work. We will always can't wait to see all the great things Låda Cube will keep building, and it transforming how we build from the traditional methods. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, the pleasure.
Thank you.